Hey everyone, welcome back into the ever-expanding universe of virtual instruments that is the Sampleist. I'm your host Greg Revell, inviting you into another deep dive on a fantastic new release that I'm really excited to share with you today, Iconic Violin by Streamtech Music. But before we get into things, if you love this content, please hit the subscribe button right now and give that like button a bit of a nudge so you can stay on top of the latest reviews of the latest releases in the world of virtual instruments. Iconic Violin is a beautifully crafted instrument that's taking its rightful place in the arena of sampled orchestral string instruments. The violin is possibly one of the most sampled instruments in the world today, and Streamtech Music raises the bar with this beautiful instrument, making a valuable contribution into that virtual landscape, promising quality through precision, design and artistry. It comes with 6 distinct microphone positions, 21 articulations and 3 legato types, recorded in a beautiful church in Heidelberg, Germany in 48Hz 24-bit quality, and it's all housed in a sleek and professional looking user interface. And yes, it is designed for the free Kontakt player and is fully NKS ready. So before we get into today's deep dive, as always, a declaration. We want to acknowledge that Streamtech Music has kindly made available a copy of the library for review today, but with that said, they've had absolutely no input whatsoever into the making of this video. All commentary and opinion is mine because at the Sampleist, we highly value our transparency and our integrity so you can make the best decisions that are right for you. I'm really looking forward to this one and I hope you are too. So let's dive right in with Streamtech Music's Iconic Violin. Well, welcome everybody to Streamtech Music's Iconic Violin. Now, the first thing that I noticed when I loaded up this instrument for the first time was its sleek and very professional looking user interface. I hope you agree. Everything about this, when I looked at it, says, I'm of a professional instrument. The layout is very simple. It's very intuitive. Everything is in its place that you would expect. You have, of course, the mod wheel, which will control the dynamics across your different layers. From a very soft all the way to a triple F. You can control the vibrato element. There is a CC11 or an expression, if you will, which is not visible on the screen, but that allows you to control the overall volume. On the right-hand side is the microphone panel, of which there are 6 microphones, spot 1, 2 and 3. There's the classic Decatry, the outriggers and the surround mics. Of course, you can control the panning for each of them and of course the volume. You can also, there's a legato function, which is quite interesting in that legato itself is not an articulation, just as the ones are in the panel below. We can talk more about that shortly. Of course, referring to the articulation window, nice big tiles of which you can choose with your mouse and obviously by key switch. The key switch is indicated in the top left-hand quarter. We'll have a quick look at the Advanced tab, which we'll talk more about shortly, but essentially it's allowing you to control the different types of legato, the note range and the round robins. But turning back to the main page, I'm going to just select the legato function on the sustain patch, and I'll give you a view of what that's like straight out of the box. Beautiful stuff, very expressive, lovely dynamic range about it too. And also too, I think the legato under my fingers felt really intuitive. There's next to no latency that I can detect between them. You'll notice that there's 3 different types of legato. You may have seen the different articulations or different legato types rather flashing across the screen here as I was playing, just ad-libbing there before. A very quick introduction to that. At low velocities, you can get a portamento. So for those who are not familiar, the portamento is like that slide between the notes. Whereas heavier velocities will give you a traditional slurred legato. And at higher velocities still, you'll get a fast legato for fast passages. Lovely stuff. Very, very clean indeed. There is the traditional range of short articulations. Now, the short articulations obviously are not controlled by the mod wheel that have no impact at all. But of course, being a short, it's the velocity with which you strike. And again, at a very, very low velocity, all the way up to spiccatissimo to a spiccato. Staccato for a little bit more length on that note. A lovely pizzicato. Again with a lovely dynamic range from very soft piano too. And for those who are wondering where the Bartok Pitz is, if you smash the key with pizzicato, you get your Bartok. Moving along, the Mercato, it's kind of like a performance patch for those who are familiar with, say, Spitfire Audio's libraries. They have what's known as a performance patch, which is the ability to play shorts and longs without actually changing articulation. And the Mercato here with the iconic violin is their implementation of just such a thing. So you can play longs and notes mixed with each other without actually changing the articulation. Lovely strong tremolos, very rapid. Soft silky consordinos. And again, for those who aren't familiar, consordino is a small rubber mute that the violin player puts in place at the bridge to mute the strings slightly to give a soft silky sound. I should also point out, I failed to mention that each of these longs, the sustains, the consordinos, even the trills, you can play obviously without legato mode, which means you can play simple chords. But you can also apply that with a legato, so you can have a consordino legato. And even in a trill, so here's your classic minor trill. But while it's in legato mode, you can also have a legato with a trill. Trill major. Lovely sultastos. favourite of mine, and for many a composer, the flautando, that soft, silky, flute-like sound. Even at low velocities, beautiful. Harmonics are just gorgeous. I've even got a tremolo sul ponce, so a tremolo played right up on the bridge to give that really nasally bridge bright sound you get. Creates a lot of tension, don't you think? And then we've also got a range of swells and also crescendos as well. So the swells being a short swell. Now I'm going to, yes, I will play this. So that's one held note. So see my finger being in this case a D. That's how long the sample is. Now, the interesting thing is if you are in legato mode as I am here, you can play the short swell note independently of each other, but you can also play a legato. Beautiful, lovely, very, very creative. Let's give a longer swell version. And also the legato is available. Now there's also a feature I forgot to mention a little earlier. With all the longs, you have the ability to do a manual rebow, as is shown on the UI just there for the moment. So I'm going to use the swell long as the example, but this applies to any long articulation that's available. And so if you play a note, and while it's ringing, you re-trigger it, there's a rebow. Which gives you an extra level of finesse and control. Crescendo shorts. And longs. Sforzando, crescendo shorts. Beautiful, very creative. And a sforzando crescendo long. And to round out the complete set, a sul ponticello. Okay, turning over to the back in the Advanced tab, let's have a quick look of what we have there. So here we have some options to control the release tails. So the release tails is the natural sound of the sample that rings out after you lift your finger off the key. So that would sound something like this. At this setting here, the tail is quite high at about, let's 84. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use a conventional sustain. And if you listen to it when I lift my finger off, I'll just play, this one's a G. Can you hear that note ringing out? And what you can do is if you take the release tails down a little bit, it cuts off that release tail. So it sounds a lot drier without the natural reverb. So if you want that drier sound, you can wind back the release tails. You have available the artificial reverb, which you can turn on and turn off. You can hear that really ringing out there. Let's over-exaggerate it. Of course, controlling that as you would like. Now, the bottom three here is about controlling the different types of legato. So legato is triggered by the velocity with which you hit your key when you join them together. And you make the legato notes by overlapping the notes. So for those notes that are between a value of 1 and 30, which is a very, very soft touch on the keyboard, very low velocity, you'll be able to trigger a portamento. In this setting at the moment, the conventional velocity is between 31 and 80, and the fast legato at 81 all the way through to 127, as we discussed a little earlier. But using these two knobs here, you can adjust the values. You can see here portamento will trigger between anything between the value of 1 and, in this case, 101. And here we've, let's pull it back a little bit. It's a bit extreme, but then regular legato is 77 to 109, and now fast legato is restricted to just 110 to 127. So you can control that to your particular programming tastes, and that would allow you, as we said earlier, to be able to play different types of legato. There's the portamento, a little harder, the conventional legato, and heavy. And this note range, this is kind of a way of artificially extending the range of the instrument. So there's the natural range of the violin itself, but you can extend the range a little higher than what it's conventionally made for, and it's coloured here in green, so at the very top of the range. But if you want to go a little higher, you can extend it well beyond what an actual violin is capable of, and also down at the bottom end with the bottom range, you can increase the range down here. So instead of stopping at the conventional G, go down to an E or a D sharp. So the algorithm's actually stretching those samples down or up, if you like, just to get a couple of extra semitones out. A very lovely feature. Also, you can control the round robins. For those who aren't familiar, round robins is a technique where the developer has recorded multiple instances of the same sample and it rotates them around in order to avoid what's known as the machine gun effect. You can turn them on and off as you see fit. Okay, just putting them all back on, taking us back there. I think that's a lovely way to start. You now have the full features available to you. You're all set to go. Let's have a look at a composition I have created with Iconic Violin. Okay, great. I'd love to share with you now a piece of music that I've pulled together. I didn't say compose because I didn't write this piece of music, and it will be obvious that I have not when you listen to it, but I wanted to choose something to show the highlights of what Iconic Violin was capable of. And on the other side of that, I'll walk you through my thought process. So let's dive right in and have a chat about how this piece of music came together. Clearly, it's not a piece of music that I wrote. It's actually Bach's Violin Concerto No. 2 in E major for violin. And the reason why I wanted to use an established piece of music rather than my own was because I'm just not that great a violin player necessarily, or a programmer of the violin. So I didn't feel like that I was in a position to be able to really make Iconic Violin's capabilities and features really come to the fore. But what better way to do so than to actually have the genius of Bach to do just that? So there are 5 tracks. The Iconic Violin itself is playing the role of the soloist, and it is ably supported by 4 tracks, giving the rest of the string orchestra, as you can see here, violin 1, violin 2, viola, and cello in the bottom. I won't talk too much about the supporting strings. They're not the main feature of today's video, but suffice to say, I did a whole heap of programming around them to make sure that they were providing the support that was actually needed. And if you look at all together, at all the MIDI, I think the thing you really get with Bach is that seeing all the MIDI together, there's always this beautiful simplicity and symmetry about it too, if you have a look at it. And obviously all the different colours there represents the different voices, being violins through down to the cello that's available here. Now, of course, Bach can do that in spades with his eyes closed. I could never have done something quite so beautiful. All right, so with that said, in order to really bring it out, my role here was more of an arranger or a programmer, if you will, rather than as composer. So what I've done here, just to, again, to bring out the detail of the Iconic Violin, I went to the trouble to actually create a customized expression map. Now, for those who are not familiar with Cubase necessarily, an expression map is the ability to create lanes that allows you to program in how and when you want to change articulations that are available. So the expression maps will programmatically trigger the right articulations at any point that I designate, and that's determined by the bottom lane down here. For those who use Logic, expression maps in Cubase are the same as what I believe are articulation sets in Logic. So I felt too it was really worth the extra time and effort to do this programmatic work to really bring out the best for Iconic Violin. So how that looks, if you have a look at the violin, I'm going to solo it for you. I'm going to take you back to the very start of the piece of the music. And as the playhead goes across each of the expression map articulation sets, you'll see them change here in the actual window itself. Staccatissimo, spiccato, stack. And also I wanted to actually spend a bit of time on them to give Iconic Violin a bit of a workout, because there are some very rapid parts here. As you can see a little bit up here, I think, let's see if I can just move this slightly to the side. Having a look here, this little exchange here, an exchange of staccatos, spiccatos, some trills. Again, really to try and bring out the best. And Iconic Violin just does it in spades. Its programming and articulation control is fantastic. As far as the advanced features go, straight out of the box, keeping all the settings there as they do come with the patch. And as far as the microphones themselves, I chose to go with the Spot, a little bit sort of focused up in the front, the traditional tree, the outriggers, and the surround sound microphones as well. So when it's all said and done, I hope you agree it all comes together to give a really lovely performance. Let me just play you the last closing seconds of the piece to bring home how I think Iconic Violin did a really remarkable job here. Okay, so my final thoughts on Streamtech Music's Iconic Violin. I think this could potentially become one of my go-to violins for a number of reasons. One, the sound is just so darn good. The quality of the sampling is gorgeous, and it feels like a fully professional instrument capable of standing on its own 2 feet as a soloist or within an orchestral setting, or indeed any environment where a violin is called upon. It has a rich set of articulations over and above the standard set you'd expect from any violin, and that extra detail gives it a richness that others don't tend to offer. The legato scripting is fantastic, and I couldn't detect any meaningful latency when I was playing with it in real time or a live setting, much less when I was programming it for a piece of music. It's probably one of the best in my opinion that strikes a wonderful balance between the ease of programmability, the playability, and that latency. Normally those 3 aspects are in tension with each other, creating a triangulation of compromises where you sacrifice one or more in order to favour the other. But here with Iconic Violin, they seem to have overcome this seemingly intractable problem. Yes, each instance does consume significant memory and compute resources in order to create an impressive result, so a higher spec machine will definitely give you the best results. But my modest 32 gig machine with a 3700 meg processor and 8 cores didn't even whimper. I did fail to mention in my video today that you can unload unwanted articulations to conserve memory. So in summary, I think Iconic Violin is a worthy member of the family of high-quality instruments that professional musicians and lovers of great sounding string instruments will enjoy. Iconic Violin has my personal endorsement. So that wraps up today's video. All that's left for me to do now is to say thank you once again for stopping by and spending some of your time with me. At the Sampleist, we absolutely love doing this stuff. It's our contribution to the virtual instrument community. So to help us out, give us a like for all the great content we produce. Leave me a comment, tell me what you think of Iconic Violin, and of course be sure to subscribe to stay on top of the latest and greatest virtual instrument releases. This is Greg Revell for the Sampleist signing off, and as always, urging you to find your sounds and find your soul. See you on the next one.